Lemon Amiga presents a Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey there, welcome to the last in the present series, Playguide and Review by Lemon Amiga. In this one, we'll be taking a look at Nicky Boom, developed and published by Microids in 1992. Nicky Boom begins with some gentle music, a very simple title picture, and also a demo of the game in the rolling attract sequence. And I think it's great that it has such a great attract sequence with big still images, and it's great that we have still images in these games, and that reminds me of Shadow of the Beast. Let's press fire and check this game out. The story goes that the evil sorceress Zoldran has kidnapped our grandfather and cast an evil spell upon him, so it's our job to track through forests and swamps and make our way over to that castle and to get a secret formula which is hidden inside a chest which will restore our grandfather and restore peace to this civilization. Unfortunately, she has also cast a spell on all the forest creatures who will try to attack us, and they will deplete our energy as we try to make that journey. The levels in Nicky Boom are anything but linear, and you could be backtracking or looping around in circles trying to find your way towards that exit. But just like all the very best platformers, we start out on the very left and have to make our way all the way to the very right of this very long level. And as you can see, we can find ladders and caves in all of the levels of Nicky Boom, and they reveal treasures, and the treasures in this game will simply add to our score, which gets added to that high score table at the very end. We start with 5 lives, and you can see that we also have one special item, that's the smart bomb that will blow up everything on the screen, and by pulling back and holding down fire, ordinarily we can launch that. And we've also picked up a normal bomb that will blow up a ladder, and some of those ladders cannot be activated unless we have a normal bomb, otherwise known as dynamite. But that looks more like a cherry bomb to me, and as this is more or less a kid's game, that could very well be that kind of kit. So moving through a teleporter, we find another cherry bomb, and we're still looking for a key, but we haven't found any locked doors at this point. And you may see that the character is actually a clown, and this game obviously isn't meant to be taken too seriously. To help us defeat those enemies, what we have are apple cores, and we have an unlimited supply of those apple cores in which we can fire towards those, and we will find extra pickups and extra weaponry a bit later on. But here we are with another flashing ladder, and we can use some dynamite to blow that up, or we can carry on exploring these endless levels. It really does help to pick up this dynamite at this point, because we'll need that to face the end of World Guardian, and of the 8 worlds in this game, you'll face 2 worlds, and then you'll face a Guardian. So this took quite some time to play, so let's just speed up that footage to several sections throughout this play guide, just to show you how to progress. And yes, we have just picked up another key, and we have inadvertently launched the smart bomb, which blows up precisely 0 on that screen. But that's what happens, and that's the benefit of using a single controller, and this works with a single fire button, of course. And you can see that this game actually is pretty similar in many ways to a Turrican game. At this point, there is a score and a readout of our collectibles along the bottom, along with some energy, and we can jump and we can leap around that level pretty dexterously. The controls are great, and we can also fire an array of weapons as well and pick up some bonuses, and one of those weapons is actually a log, which I've collected at the moment. That log will attach itself to the sides of a rock and create a bridge, and we'll need to create a bridge to get further along this level, and so let's just go ahead and do that and hope that we don't get attacked along the way. Also, like Turrican, there are lots and lots of secret areas, and unfortunately this guy cannot swim, so sometimes it's worth investigating those, and sometimes it's best to avoid water at all costs. But you may be surprised that I'm actually comparing this to a Turrican game, and that's because this is a little bit like a child's version of Turrican, and unfortunately I used the wrong explosive to blow up that rock. Yes, there was a hidden item in that square chunk of rock, but I used the wrong explosive, and that's absolutely possible in this game, and sometimes you can wander around blindly and use up very important items like those explosives before you've triggered a very important device such as this ladder. Weapons will last for quite some time, and that enables us to build another bridge, and we'll also gain fireballs later on as well, and extra weaponry, as I say, but unfortunately we cannot duck down into a gyro ball and roll around that level at high speed. But just like Turrican, we can jump on top of those enemies' heads, and that's the second way to kill those enemies. If you absolutely must kill those, you can certainly jump on top, and that's absolutely great. It means that we don't have to waste so much energy trying to fight those things. We can simply land on top of those, and yes, that is an extra energy top up in case we were running out of energy, but you can see we are down to 4 lives at the moment, which really isn't great going, seeing as this is a long game and it will probably take maybe 3 or 4 hours to complete in one go. The music is actually very jolly and very catchy, but that does disappear into somber tones now and again and disappears into some kind of melancholy, but I think the themes in this game are very well done, and they do change every 2 levels. The first 2 levels take place in the woods, where we'll find all these trees and all these caves, and of course these things aren't any problem to a seasoned platformer who can just romp through this at high speed. But you may have noticed an extra ladder hidden on the floor. Yes, extra hidden ladders will appear if you simply wander over those, and as I say, sometimes it's worth going off that beaten track, because sometimes you'll need all the dynamite to help you defeat the end of level boss. Having not played this game in some time, I have absolutely no idea where I'm going at the moment, so let's just carry on exploring these hidden areas, and yes, this game can be completed maybe in 5 minutes if you walk straight towards the exits, or it can take an hour if you explore all these antechambers and all these bonus areas. The graphics on offer, even at this early stage, are absolutely great, and you can see the backgrounds have been very nicely shaded. Even though we don't get any parallax scrolling in the backgrounds, we do get some very fleshed out rocks, and it's a step up from certain platformers on the Amiga which had very monochrome coloured platforms, and this has some thought and some elements drawn into this, like some great animations. and you can see some stalagmites and stalactites have been drawn in there, as well as a nice background and some brick features as well. So these levels do change a little bit like Yo-Jo, and yes, they have used a normal brick pattern to create these levels, and the simple backbone editor would create something like this in a game design. But you can see that some thought has gone into these graphics, and they haven't just made this a simple 8-bit style platformer. Many Amiga games, it struggles to play that music and the sound effects together, but it does have a hearty try, and with a few more interrupts they could have made a better job of that, but at least we do get the music and the sound effects. And as this game does play for some time, the music is rather cutesy, but at least it isn't absolutely annoying, and I'm sure there is a key to switch that off if you really need that. On the Amiga, the very gradual difficulty curve has led us towards a set of mines, and I'm not quite sure how to blow these up. Let's just try the smart bomb, and that did nothing, and you can see boulders determined to carve us in half. And the energy in this game is few and far between. You really have to memorize that to get to know what that is. And should we explode something, well, yet again, the smart bomb isn't the bomb to use. We really have to be standing by a block to blow that up with the dynamite. So that's yet again a wasted bomb. And, well, that's another wasted life. Yes, this game doesn't take itself too seriously, and unfortunately you will have to memorize certain things in order to save yourself losing certain lives, and that is just one of those things that you'll have to memorize in this game. But you can see some very well animated squirrels and some very well drawn squirrels, and I think it's those elements which really make this game impressive for what seems like a very homemade title. We are now getting very close towards the end of the very first level, and just in case you thought that this was an absolute kids game and an absolute pushover, at least the game throws in a number of mini bosses every so often just to keep life a little bit more interesting. On the very first level, the boss is a huge wasp, and that will throw fireballs towards us, and they will absolutely deplete our energy. And as you can see, no amount of ducking, unfortunately, will stop those from depleting that energy. So the best thing to do is to lay into that with whatever weaponry you have, and try your best to avoid all that firepower. Or, just like I'm doing, I'm actually using the smart bombs to do that job for me, and hopefully preserve those lives. Having 3 lives at this point is absolutely ridiculous on such an easy level, and falling through water is the death of us, it seems, on this particular game. We are now at the end of the level, and at the end it will give us an opportunity to blow lots of items away using that dynamite to reveal some hidden objects, and we have 9 dynamite, or cherry bombs as I like to call those, in the inventory, so we can use those to explore all these ladders. But I don't think that's even necessary, because we can simply jump across the bottom of that screen and exit to the right from here. But you can see sometimes blowing those open reveals something special, like an invulnerability device, and yet again for the 3rd time in a row we fall into some water and die, making the shield completely useless. The game will then throw a very ancient Jet Set Willy style password entry system in front of us, and unfortunately that does take its time, but having done so we will gain the password to the 2nd level in the first world, which is Medit. And if you've made it this far, then you can enter that password, and what that will do is that will give you 5 lives to continue, and that will give you the ability to complete the game simply entering those passwords. But unfortunately I have not chosen to enter that password, because that will lose the bombs, and we can have a maximum of 9 of those cherry bombs, and I simply have 9 at the moment. So that's a decision whether to use up those lives or to use up those bombs, and I've chosen to play this game straight. But I think the password system is a great feature, and I really do appreciate the fact that we can simply enter the level passwords at the very last level, and we can get through that and complete the game. Though we have the bombs, we'll still need the key to get through those doors, and that means another romp around this level, and particularly backtracking is something that you'll have to master if you want to clean out everything inside all these endless caves. At this point, some of the weak points of this game start to show up, and one of the weakest points is simply there doesn't seem to be much going on. Yes, there are some enemies floating around that level, and once you've destroyed those, the level is empty. There aren't too many respawning enemies that I've noticed, and that's great. It means that we don't have to move off that screen and move on it again just to kill the same enemy and defeat that same trap all over again. And that's fantastic. It even gives us a bonus for killing the largest enemies. But I think the romping around aspect is sometimes a little bit bland on this first level, and that's certainly a shame because, as I say, the music, the graphics and the playability, the animations, the characters and the controls are all great. So in theory this game should really rank up there with games like Robocod and all the best platformers that we've seen already. There aren't many puzzles in this game, but what puzzles there are very interesting, and it won't take us long to figure out how to get around this map and to memorise that and to get to all those hard to reach places. In this case I've managed to find myself some more energy, and we already had the full energy, clinging on now to these 2 lives thanks to that water, and that really wasn't necessary in that case. But these birds you can see really do need high explosives to get rid of those, and if you touch those you'll die. So it's a case of figuring out the puzzles to get to some of these areas, particularly on these levels, and leaps of faith. As you can see, sometimes those lead into water, and in this case it's led to a bird. And how do you get rid of that bird? Because as soon as you move across onto that ladder, it will block the ladder, and if you touch that thing you'll get some hits. So yet again the smart bomb is needed, and I don't have a smart bomb, and yet again thank you, the level actually resets that enemy, allowing us to get up there while we still have the invulnerability and to get rid of it. So this game does play fairly, and it doesn't really treat the player unfairly, which is great, and that means that we can have a jolly time moving through all these levels. Another weak aspect of this game is that the character's jump is relatively small, certainly smaller than we saw on the amazing Super Frog with its huge leap, and of course other games that we've seen, Rough and Tumble had a nice big jump, and Robocod had a massive huge leap, but in this game the character cannot land on top of higher platforms and make that connection. No, we have to walk around the level the long way and to find those ladders. There is nothing to ascend in this level, no balloons or any bubbles that we can jump onto, and so we'll have to track down all those teleports if we want to make our way quickly, and hope that we don't find somewhere which requires something like a key, which requires us to backtrack all the way back. You'll also find mysterious ancient artifacts, and this huge horn is exploding with some more bonuses, and we'll find those dotted around that level, as well as huge bonus pickups which will give us thousands of points, just like this, which looks like a gumball machine. We can fire our way into that and collect 5,000 points, and a nice sound effect to go with that. And what that will do is activate a special hidden area where we can find a series of those bonuses, and from now on it's just a case of wasting time getting through this level, and again, just like the 5th level of Turrican, we'll have to bust our way through all these blocks in order to get to where we need to go. This exploring element should keep adventurers happy for a little while, and you can certainly avoid this area if you really want to do that. It is not crucial to go through any area in this game unless it happens to be blocked by a door, and then you'll need a key for that, or unless it's a critical ladder where you'll need dynamite to blow that up. And quite why you need dynamite to activate ladders is a complete mystery, but the bombs do serve a purpose, and again, just like Turrican, we can lay those bombs and blow up enemies with those as well. The main character is a clown, and he's relatively well defined. You can see the parting of his hair, and the hair does move as the character walks. He's a very fat clown, and he's designed to appeal to kids who have not been allowed to buy Turrican and Shadow of the Beast because they are too violent, and you won't find any blood in this game. It's accessible to people of all ages, and just like Yo Joe, it does give you that pleasurable feeling of getting from one stage to the next and making sure that you get there in the quickest time possible. And the levels are different enough to memorize, which is a great feeling, but they are also sprawling, so the player will have to investigate these levels multiple times before they are comfortable enough to really romp through them. You can see a very nice bowl on the floor and well to one side, and it's those graphical touches which add the detail. You can see flowers sprouting around, and yes, we've seen that already with Super Frog and Kid Chaos that we haven't reviewed, and in that game we had to destroy the flowers and ignore the enemies. But in this game we certainly have to collect all those bonuses, and that gives us a little more prestige as we make our way through onto some more deadly spiders, which actually herald the end of level boss, which is a huge spider in itself. And we are getting there. We can see some magic eyes, which is yet another new feature in this game. Just in case you thought Nicky Boom was an absolute pushover, no, this game really does take itself seriously when it comes to the bosses, which are an absolute nightmare. If you have maybe 6 smart bombs, then you can pick up all of these legs and defeat this boss, but if you don't have those smart bombs, unfortunately you'll have to pick that off with the basic apple cores, which of course takes forever. And that means that we've just lost all our lives trying to defeat that boss, and that means that unfortunately it's game over. That takes us, after some tribute music, onto that high score table, and once again that great music really does take it in turns to go from being overly cutesy to being really atmospheric and really well defined. Lastly, we can type our name on the keyboard into that high score table, and that gives us another demo-like effect to mesmerize us along with that music. Pressing the fire button, we can return back to that main title screen, and by pressing the spacebar, that gives us a chance to enter that password system. We have managed to find the passwords on lemonamiga.com, so let's just enter the password for level 3, and let's check out the second world of the 4 in this game. In the second world we find the swamp, and in the swamp we'll find some giant fish which will blow bubbles towards us. There are actually two fish guarding the way out of this maze, and we'll have to take on them both as we move through that game. And from here on in, the cutesy creatures also fire deadly fireballs towards us, and these ladybirds, or ladybugs as you might call them, are actually deadly, and so you'll have to avoid things and fire towards things from a long way away. You can see the graphics are still greatly drawn, and I really appreciate the pastel colours that they used, as this means that the game takes on an otherworldly presence, particularly on this second level, which again reminds me of the Shadow of the Beast. The seasoned gamer will now have to be on their toes, avoiding and jumping over all these things, and because of that password system we now have the 5 lives, and of course, well, we cannot use that bomb to blow up the others, but if we had the smart bomb, that would release all the other items on that shelf. And unfortunately we don't have the key, so let's just fast forward the footage back, and let's use those logs to hopefully make short work of the second fish. And I think it's a great thing that there are huge bosses and huge aliens and huge creatures that we'll have to get through, and even huge frogs in this game which are huger than Super Frog. Unfortunately, we cannot open doors with keys, and we cannot enter buildings, and we cannot blow those things up either, and neither can we enter water, as we've found out 4 times already. And so let's just continue with some more of this level, and you can see that the graphics do continue to be great, and so does the music and the adventure involved, and you really have to be on your toes with this game. Let's enter another password and warp over to level 5, and in level 5 we find a third world, which was Dark Forest. And in here you'll find a new batch of creatures and bats and things like that. Again, very well drawn, and I like the trees in the background and the rats and things like that. So I think that the creatures are a suitable size and very well animated in each case, and I think the creatures and the aliens are very well drawn, and the aliens in this case are very welcome in a game such as this, which really does need an otherworldly character in an otherworldly landscape. So to go along with that character, you may find the graphics remind you a little bit of maybe Roger Dean and all those guys who did draw all these weird and colourful landscapes, and maybe Kate Bush's third album cover drawn by Nick Prince. And I think that this really does add to this game, and you can see hidden areas and things like that, so there really is a lot going on under that surface. And as I say, it is not the stock platformer, and it is better in many cases than Platman that we saw, even though Platman yet again had a nice big jump. The history of this game begins in 1983 with the foundation of Lariciels by Mark Bale and Laurent Weil. They then developed lots of games for the 8-bit platforms and took on Elliot Graciano, who was one of Lariciel's game designers, and he had great ideas for games, so the guys at Lariciels actually funded him and created the Microids label for him in 1985, and Mark and Laurent and Elliot were also aided by Patrick Le Nestor. originally based in Belize in France, and that company Microids is still going to this very day, producing games for mobile platforms. On the Amiga, hidden switches, and we are having difficulty actually finding our way around this maze, and so this game really does take some time to explore and to get best out of it. And so let's just use another password. Let's just skip on to level 7 of the 8, and the final 2 levels are based on the castle itself, where you'll find evil wizards, and you'll find the final evil wizard at the end of the game. Nicky Boom was coded by Domenico Manfredi, and he began with a very silkworm-like game known as Fire in 1989 on the Amiga. He then moved on to Safari Guns in 1989, which is, I actually find it a very brilliant shooter where we have to take photographs of wild animals and defend against the natives at the same time. And that was developed and modified into Wildlife, which was released in 1990. And then we move on to Soulfully, which was a rather 2.5D animated shoot 'em up in 1990. And after Soulfully we get Indigo, which was Microid's final game on the Amiga, released in 1993. All of these graphics, all of the sound effects, and all the music was created by Alain Lambin. And Alain Lambin, well, he began with Recovery on the Amiga in 1990, which is based on yet another exploration of the human body, trying to find and destroy aliens within that, like Microcosm. And he then moved on to Sophali in 1990. And you may also find that this game had ports on not only the Amiga but also the ST and the DOS machine as well. And Nicky Boom was actually remade in 2008 and is currently available in the App Store for mobile platforms and the OS X operating system. Loriciels are probably most famous for Gym Power, Panzer Kickboxer, and perhaps Space Ranger on the Amiga. And unfortunately, Microids has a lesser killer title in Eddie Edwards Super Ski in 1988, Highway Patrol 2, Chicago 90, Killer Ball appeared in 1991, and Dominium appeared in 1993. And their final game was Carlos, another platformer, in 1994. I think this title is very well polished, and it certainly has some good things about it which encourages the player, and that makes it fun and enjoyable, and it means that the player can have a really great time exploring. But the Microids company also thought this was a great game, so in 1983, a year later, they actually released a sequel called Nicky 2, and that was supposedly the sequel to this game, but it was written by completely different programmers, and they used different music as well, although Alain Lambin was involved with the music and some of the sound effects. I think the music in this game is pretty terrible. Domenico Manfredi is actually thanked in the second game, even though he was nothing to do with it. And so let's just press that fire button and let's check out this game. You can see the main character isn't half as well drawn as the original game, although the trees are better drawn. You can see this game tries to copy the formula, but to my mind that copper sky is rather banded. And instead of adding extra polish and extra playability, they've simply taken the formula, and unfortunately the graphics aren't quite as good, and the atmosphere isn't quite as good either. You can see see that limited jump is still highly annoying, and yes, we can pick up sticks of dynamite on this particular game, and we can also pick up the junk, including Coke cans, a little like the game Venus the Flytrap, in order to increase our score. And you can see some more bonus items as well, and I think that this game, even though it was trying to cash in, unfortunately it didn't quite make it. Maybe they tried to make a rip-off or maybe a cheaper alternative, but to my mind this definitely looks like a public domain title, and the music seems to stutter and slow down as well, and that just means that the whole experience is absolutely average and absolutely mediocre, and nothing in this game makes it stand out above the many other platformers on the Amiga. Amiga Power awarded Nicky 2 an incredible 34%, and that simply echoed their lowly rating of the original game. So let's just go through the scores of the original Nicky Boom, and you might be surprised or unsurprised to learn that the lowest score came from Amiga Power. Yes, Gary Penn deservedly gave this 50%, saying that this was ordinary and mundane. And that's the original Nicky Boom we are talking about here, not Nicky Boom 2. And Amiga Joker gave it 64%, CO Amiga gave the game 65%, the current Lemon Amiga score for the original Nicky Boom is 72%, Amiga Computing gave the original Nicky Boom 82% in issue 57, and Amiga Format gave it 88% in issue 42. They said it was pleasantly executed and very playable, and certainly contrasts from the very bland and boring and ultimately absolutely slated review by Amiga Power. That gave the original Nicky Boom an average score of 6.5 out of 10. And thanks to that Amiga Power slating, many players have avoided the original Nicky Boom for all these years, and of course Nicky Boom 2 that you're looking at the moment does nothing to further that reputation. Nicky Boom 2 adds lots of characters, and like the New Zealand story, we can fly on those, but we cannot access all those small areas, and those will simply disappear after a time, and that's, well, an addition, makes this game more like the New Zealand story, but I think the original Nicky Boom, with its average score of 6.5 out of 10, I think that has stood the time much better. Thank you for viewing another Lemon Amiga Playguide and review. See you in the next series sometime soon.